Hi guys, how you doing? Welcome to Newcastle United's new media room. I'll just step out short so you can see. Well, it's not much to see actually, but this is it. So yeah, a little bit different. You guys will be pleased to know these work, the mics work, because we've had problems with that. You can't hear the questions in the press conferences. But yeah, the club have put this new press room on for us, so does the job, does what it says in the tin, and there's more room for us, because that room that we used to use down at the back there was it's getting worse and worse really. So this is a nice place to be. Can do lives outside, and just a lot more working space for us guys. And the first people to make the debut in the room today was Eddie Howe, the Newcastle United manager, alongside Bruno Fernandes. So really good to hear from the two of those today in the build-up to the Sela Cup matches tomorrow night against Girona, and then Stade Brestois on Saturday. It's good of the club to put them both up. Lots going on, of course, at the club. The new Stack opening today. I might pop down for a pint myself. Friendlies, transfers, stuff going on and rumbling on in the background, and of course the season starting a week on Saturday, 9 days time. So anyway, loads to get through today in the press conference, but the main topics of course were transfers. It's always the same this stage of the season. Right, let's talk about the one that's in the door. Literally 2 minutes before the press conference started, Newcastle announced William Osula. I think I broke it on my socials a couple of nights ago that the deal was done, the agreement was in place, £10 million from Sheffield United for the striker, with £5 million worth of add-ons. By the way, I said William Osula. I am reliably told it's Will Osula. I'm going to have to call him Will Osula, so there you go. So Osula's in the door, training with his teammates today. Eddie said he's looked impressive so far. He said he's got all the raw ingredients to be a great striker. 6'3". He says he's got blistering pace. He says he's got good technical ability, still has some rough edges, but it sounds as though it's a player that he can do something with. And he said he's been watching him for 3 years. Jason Tyndall was aware of him, or had him at Sheffield United, knew what this guy was like, and have decided to take a bit of a chance on him. So that's Will Osula in the door. Many of us hadn't heard of him 2 weeks ago, but there you go. That one's done and dusted. So that's probably the least newsy of them all. Everyone wants to know about the other ones. Mark Gahey, of course, is the big one. He was only asked one question about Mark Gahey today, and it came from myself, and the way Eddie answered the question, I kind of shut everyone else down and meant that nobody else followed him with another question, understandably, because he said, I don't have an update for you, I've got nothing for you on that one. So yeah, so look, I think part of it is Eddie's probably being left out of all the transactions in the background, which is what he wants. He doesn't want to be dealing with transfers. He's essentially been a de facto sporting director for the last couple of years, and obviously since Dan Ashworth left it with Paul Mitchell in the door, Mitchell gets left to everything, and Eddie doesn't have to deal with that, so he can concentrate on the training pitch. Look, without doubt, he's a player that Eddie Howe wants, likes, really rates, and it's up to Paul Mitchell and Darren Eales to get the deal done now. So yeah, no comment from Eddie Howe on that, but he certainly didn't knock it down. He certainly didn't say I've got no interest, so it's there. It's there in the background, and Newcastle are still in talks with Crystal Palace. As I stand here right now, I might get an update soon, but as I stand here right now, I think the situation is the same as it was a couple of days ago, and that one bid has been placed, it's been rejected, and Newcastle are still at the table. They are the only club at the table talking money with Crystal Palace. There are other interested parties, but it's only Newcastle at this moment who are at the table talking about a deal. The player is keen on the move. Personal terms not likely to be a problem. So as I said in my video 2 days ago, it's about Newcastle now just coming up with a sum that is acceptable by Crystal Palace, and I fully expect that deal to go through if and when they do that. But as I said a couple of days ago, news or reports or speculation on social media that a second bid had gone in on Tuesday lunchtime are inaccurate, untrue, has not happened. People, getting a little bit twitchy and getting a little bit wanting to know, think they know what's going on. Frustrating for us guys who obviously are trying to do a job, but that is the case, and we're as it stands, we're in the same position. If I get an update later today or tomorrow or over the weekend, I'll bring it to you guys as soon as I can. So that was him on Gahey. Who else? Gordon, he said, arrived yesterday, looks really good. He said he's had a conversation with him. He said everything's Newcastle. He said he's not distracted at all. He's fully concentrated on Newcastle United. it's what you would expect Eddie Howe to say. I think that's one to watch. I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens over the next couple of weeks. But if you're asking me now, will Anthony Gordon be a Newcastle player at the end of the transfer window? I will say yes. I think he will be. But without doubt, his head has probably been spun a little bit with all the talks with Liverpool at the end of June, because look, there was definite talks. Newcastle knew they needed to sell. It was a last resort, but he could have gone in the dying embers of that PSR window. Instead, Anderson and Minty went, and they were able to keep Gordon. Newcastle now, I've said this a couple of times, are in a much stronger position. They're not as vulnerable as they were at the end of June. They don't have to sell him, and it would take an extraordinary offer from Liverpool or anyone else for Anthony Gordon to leave. So look, he's going to be involved at the weekend, Eddie Howe says, and I would expect him to stay at the end of the month. Bruno Guimaraes, he was up to date at the news conference, so that suggests to me he wants to stay. We all saw his post on social media the other day, essentially committing his future to Newcastle this season. He had the captain's armband, and he said today that Eddie Howe has invited him into the leadership group alongside the likes of Jamal Lascelles, Dan Burn, Callum Wilson, Kieran Trippier, and he's now a key component of that. Is that because Kieran Trippier might be about to leave? Is that because Lascelles isn't quite as involved because he's injured? So too is Wilson at the moment, probably the case. But Bruno says it's a real honour, and he says because English isn't his first language, it's not easy, but he's been a captain all through his life. Brazil youths, Lyon, Atletico Paranaense, and he's comfortable with it, and he really wants to repay the faith shown in him by Eddie Howe and by the fans by repeating, not for the first time, he said it a number of times, bringing you guys a trophy today. So I think pretty much Bruno committing his future to Newcastle today. The fact the club put him up to speak as well makes me think that everything's okay behind the scenes here, and he's going to give it a real go this season. And he said it's a massive season. We don't have Champions League football to contend with, and he thinks without that, if they manage to keep their squad fit, like we're all saying, they could be up there. Newcastle could be up there in the top 4 positions come the end of the season. So strong on Gordon staying put, strong on Bruno staying put. Not so much, I have to say, Kieran Trippier. And while he didn't really want to talk individual players, when he was asked a direct question, Eddie Howe, about Kieran Trippier today, he did say that, you know, I think it was to the effect of Kieran isn't openly trying to leave, or isn't itching to leave, or I think it was openly trying to leave. And he said he's come back and he looks fit and he's wanted to be involved and he wants to play, and he said he's an important member of the team and the squad. That suggests to me that perhaps Livramento might be ahead of him in the pecking order at the moment, ahead of the new season. But he did caveat all of the good news about him being back involved and wanting to play with saying that certain players will have to be sold so that they comply with PSR. And he says it's the same with everyone. He says, look, of course we want to keep our very best players at the club. He said we'll fight tooth and nail to keep them here, but there are certain deals that we have to do. And it was in a direct response to a question about Kieran Trippier, which makes me think that, and we've been saying it for a while, that there is a chance Trippier might go between now and the end of the window. But we're running out of time. We are running out of time, aren't we? We're only, 3 weeks left of the transfer window, so, you know, things would have to move quickly for Kieran Trippier to get a move elsewhere, whether that is to a West Ham, I know he's been linked with them, another Premier League club, or over to Saudi Arabia. But it feels like with only a year left in his contract that maybe Kieran Trippier's time at the club is beginning to come to an end, and it was kind of hinted at by Eddie Howe today without saying he's definitely leaving. So that was interesting to hear what Eddie said there. It wasn't a ringing endorsement that Kieran Trippier is going to stay. So yeah, lots to talk about in terms of transfers today. It feels very much like if you are to get Mark Gahey in, it's probably going to go into next week now, but look, there's still a chance he arrives before the Southampton game. It's not an easy deal to do due to the numbers involved, and that is why it's going to be a lengthy process. But I think if you're able to get an England international into that back four, he improves the starting 11 no end. I think if you're able to do that, it's worth the wait, I would say, for a player of his calibre and for that amount of team. That amount of money, should I say, into the starting lineup. So that's it from here today. Just to give you a little flavour of what's been said. As I say, if I do have an update on transfers, I'll nip on and have a chat with you guys here. Try to think other news lines that came out today. Mostly transfers. A nice funny one at the end. Bruno said he's asked how he's feeling, how the tiredness is, and he said his first day back at training, he said he felt that Eddie Howe was trying to kill him. He said it was so hard, so full on. He just got off a 26-hour flight, and he said, I felt like I was going to pass away. So that just gives you a little insight into how intense Newcastle United's pre-season has been under Eddie Howe, and we all know that's what his training sessions are like. I can actually hear them just over my shoulder there, training away in the background. So anyway, guys, that's it from me. I'll be back on, as I say, if there's any updates or anything else over the weekend. Hope you guys have a good weekend. Enjoy the matches if you're going there. If you're not, if you're abroad or whatever, tune in to myself on YouTube. Do subscribe if you haven't done already, and leave your comments below, because as you see, I'm getting a bit more involved in them and trying to interact with what you guys are sort of telling me back and replying with. So, okay guys, thanks for listening, and I'll see you on the next one.